Silver was the fuse that would blow up the gold's derivative bomb, if you will, and that immediately spills over to credit markets. It must be understood that the reason gold and the reason silver have been suppressed since 1975, since they started futures contracts on the metals, the reason for the suppression is to allow, or was to allow, the financial world, the media, to point at gold and say, see, gold bad, dollar good. Because they can't bankrupt, they cannot default in a world that is in the process of defaulting.
In today's news recap, silver stuck at $82 on boost from ongoing Middle East tensions with Iran. Silver continues to rise in the early Asian session on Friday, hovering around $82. White metal is boosted by the ongoing U.S.-Israeli campaign against Iran, which offers safe haven support. In search of new motivation, traders await the release of the important U.S. employment report for February. Iran launched a new round of missile and drone attacks throughout the Gulf on Thursday, with attacks reported in Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates. U.S. President Donald Trump claimed that Iranian officials had contacted him in an effort to come to an end to the conflict, but he maintained that it was too late and that the U.S. was working to destroy Iran. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, meanwhile, declared that his nation had not asked for a ceasefire and had no plans to engage in negotiations. In the short term, a safe haven asset like silver may benefit from growing tensions between the U.S. and Iran, as well as worries about a protracted conflict in the Middle East. Silver is still in a long-term bullish trend after surpassing its 1980 peak of $50.36 per ounce in 2025. Industrial and speculative demand for silver has skyrocketed. According to the Silver Institute, demand will exceed supply in 2025, resulting in a deficit of 117.70 million ounces. When the price of silver reached a new record high in 2025, it attracted significant buying interest because it is a highly speculative metal. Silver Institute projected silver demand to stay largely unchanged in 2026, as healthy gains in retail investment are likely to offset most of the losses across other key demand segments, notably in jewelry, silverware, and industrial demand. A weak U.S. dollar and the likelihood of declining U.S. interest rates have been positive for silver prices. Now smash the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and make sure you check goldsilverstacks.com to get the Stacker's Handbook, the ultimate guide to trade the gold and silver ratio and get more ounces without relying on market commentators. Link in pinned comment. Let's get back into the episode.
Well, I said watch out for the March delivery month, simply because the game has changed. It used to be that, and I'll just use the number 100. It used to be 100 contracts would stand for delivery on first notice day, and by the time it came to deliver, there might only be 6 or 7 or 3 or 12 contracts that actually stand for deliver. They all got basically paid in fiat to walk away and not take the metal. Now, over the last year and a half to 2 years, that has changed. The number that you see on first notice day, that number now grows during the month. So whatever stands initially stays, and then you've got new contract buyers that step up, buy the contract, and they stand for delivery. So, you saw, I think the number was 30 million ounces in January. I think we're about 25 million ounces here in February. And this is versus basically 100 million ounce registered inventory that's available to deliver. And as of right now, there's a shade over 200 million ounces represented by the contracts that are open in March versus a 100 million ounce delivery. Now, if first notice day, we come in at 80, 90, 100 million ounces, I'm going to say that's game over, because by the end of the month, it's going to be way more than 100 million ounces. And where's the silver going to come from to deliver? Yeah, I mean, you're describing the process that leads up to the failure to deliver. What's happening is, if you go back 5 years, 10 plus years, it used to be that the pricing of gold, the pricing of silver was strictly done in collusion between LBMA and the CME, New York and London. But what's happening now is the demand for silver, because it has so many different uses, the tail, meaning the derivatives market, is no longer wagging the dog. The dog is standing up on its own, and it's starting to wag the tail. In other words, the cash markets are pricing silver, they're pricing gold, and the futures contracts in New York and London be damned. And that's proven. Just look at the price in Shanghai. Look at the price in Shanghai. Look at the price in India. They're both at a premium right now. Shanghai's $11 higher. In what world could that exist without arbitrage? And the reason the arbitrage is not closing that gap is because if you sell a contract or sell physical metal in Shanghai, now you're short, and you buy it in New York, and if you don't get delivered on, you're short, pure and simple. So the reason the arbitrage, that spread, exists is because, in my opinion, traders are afraid to go short in Shanghai because they don't know 100% positive that they're going to be delivered on in New York.
In today's news recap, silver price declines to near $82 as U.S. dollar regains ground. Silver is down 1.6% to near $82 during the trading session on Thursday. The precious metal declines as the U.S. dollar rebounds strongly, following upbeat ADP employment and surprisingly strong ISM services PMI data for February. Technically, a higher U.S. dollar makes the silver price an unfavorable risk-reward bet for investors. The ADP private employment report showed job growth of 63,000 in February, above market expectations, while the Institute for Supply Management reported that the Services Purchasing Managers Index rose to 56.1 in February from 53.8 in the previous month. Economists expected the data to come in lower at 53.5. At the same time, receding dovish Federal Reserve prospects for the near term are also weighing on the silver price. Traders seem confident that the Fed will not cut interest rates in the first half of the year, according to estimates based on the CME FedWatch tool. Such an environment diminishes demand for non-yielding assets, such as silver, which tend to benefit from lower interest rates. However, intensified geopolitical tensions in the Middle East could offer a cushion to the silver price. The war involving the United States, U.S., Israel, and Iran is expected to continue for longer than initially anticipated, following a denial from Tehran over the New York Times report claiming that Iran's Ministry of Intelligence reached out indirectly to the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency with an offer to discuss terms for ending the conflict. Now smash the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and make sure you check goldsilverstacks.com to get the Stacker's Handbook, the ultimate guide to trade the gold and silver ratio and get more ounces without relying on market commentators. Link in pinned comment. Let's get back into the episode.
The mid-70s, when they created the futures contracts, they were created, and actually, I just posted this on my site 2 days ago. Data had put out a press release back in 2017 where there was an intercepted cable that talked about the origination of the Comex futures contracts, and that the purpose was to be able to control and suppress the price of gold and silver. It worked as a relief valve, if you will, on the pressure of physical buying of gold and of silver. Now you can add one more group to one more layer on top of the suppression, and that was the ETFs, GLD, SLV. If you look at their prospectuses, they do not have to own physical gold. They do not have to own physical silver. They have to own, they can own physical metal, but they're also allowed to own contracts. And when this came out in 03, GLD, and then I think SLV came out a year later or 2 years later, right off the bat, I said, this is a pressure relief valve. It makes it easy for somebody to point and click in their brokerage account and purchase GLD, purchase SLV, and say to themselves, okay, now I'm hedged. I own gold, I own silver. The only problem is that's not true. You don't own gold, you don't own silver, you own contracts. You have a paper conduit to your ownership of the metal. So what it did was it steered what would have been physical buying, cash and carry, you buy it, you take delivery. It took some of the pressure off of that and diverted funds into the ETFs. Now there's one more layer, and not too many people have talked about this, but I fully believe this, that the cryptos themselves were also a pressure relief valve for investors who wanted to get out of fiat. What they did was they've offered another avenue to get out of fiat and into something. I guess when I say something, what is Bitcoin? What are cryptos? In my opinion, they're digital air, and when the rug gets pulled, those are going to be zeroed out. So in the end, you either own physical gold, physical silver, or you don't. If you own the ETFs, you don't own gold or silver. If you own crypto, like I said, I don't know what you own. In my opinion, it's digital air. But all three of those instances were all used to suppress the price of gold and to suppress the price of silver. And oddly enough, gold and silver, since January of 2000, have been the best asset class to own.
What do you think of today's show? Do you agree with Bill Holter? Will gold and silver print higher highs in March, or is the rally over? Are you buying the dip? Posts in the comment section down below your honest opinion, and watch this video right here because it's a perfect fit for you. And I'll see you on the other side.